Now here in part 2, we're going to explore some other concepts about the automation of government, some seemingly unrelated concepts that hopefully can be tied together into a holistic view of where things are going. So if you saw part 1, you recognize what this slide is about. Federal government spending is a certain amount. It of course keeps rising, but it is a certain low-tech growth trajectory, and the portion of automation in the world, the technomic medium of the world, generates technological deflation. More than 3% of the entire world's economy is now high-tech, as you can see in this tag in the upper right-hand corner over here. And that generates a certain amount of deflation, which consumes the money printing that the world does, the quantitative easing that the world does, which does not cause the inflation that everyone assumed it would cause because the technological deflation is offsetting it. Now think about government also from the bottom up. Many government services are very expensive for what you get. For example, in California, the state where I live, the average car has to pay about $300 a year for its annual registration. Most other states in the United States are between $50 and $300 a year. California is one of the highest at $300 a year. And all that you get each year is that registration verification and a sticker that you put on your license plate. So that is the tax on car ownership, $300 a year. Now, this type of verification and law enforcement interfacing of such a registration should be extremely inexpensive. It should be $2 a year through a much more high-tech software system. But because it's an excuse to charge another tax, and a lot of the workers in the Department of Motor Vehicles are dependent on that tax, that is why it is $300 per year per car on average. Luxury cars are much more than that. As an analogy, we can go to the similar topic of education, which I made this chart for some time ago and an entire set of videos about it on this channel. During the pandemic, many university students had to go home and be in isolation while attending their classes. So it was only lectures over Zoom or Microsoft Teams or some other video conferencing service. But the universities still wanted to charge the same fee, and this did not seem right at an intuitive level. So I made this chart. Other people made similar charts that are all over the internet. If Netflix is $9 a month, Hulu is $6 a month, all of these services are between $6 and $12 a month, yet U.S. universities cost $2,000 to $7,000 per month. Remember, an academic year is only 8 months, so the annual tuition fee should be divided by 8 months, not 12 months. This is the cost differential here. And when learning is in person, you can say, yes, there's something to be said for a classroom experience and interacting with other people, but that is not valuable every day, all the time, and especially relative to this cost. People always get those types of technological disruptions wrong. They always say that the old version will last forever, even if the new version is cheaper, but in reality, they are just afraid of change. The topmost universities in certain subjects like Stanford Business School, Stanford Law School, over there you are getting something special, but 99.9% of all other classroom education in the world is just the transmission of commoditized information. People have to think in terms of these comparisons, what this costs relative to what you're getting for these costs. That's why if you go back up to a chart like this, consider how so many government services are rather expensive. That $300 vehicle fee versus the fact that ChatGPT is free to use. Google searches are free to use. Yes, they have an ad-based revenue model, but nothing is coming out of your pocket. And if you're very poor, then the ad-based revenue isn't costing you anything because there isn't much benefit in even advertising to you. So to the extent the ad-based model charges the user money, it is only charging higher income, higher wealth people. ChatGPT is free, Google search is free, Netflix, as we saw, is $9 a month. YouTube is free other than the ads you have to watch. And there's a tremendous wealth of educational material on YouTube. All of these services through the tech industry are free or very low cost. There's a lot of time-wasting distractions on YouTube as well, but that is up to the person to focus on their own discipline and become smarter through what is available on YouTube. So the tech industry has delivered all of these things that are of very low cost or even free versus what we pay for government. So the cost of running government should also go down. Now, in terms of artificial intelligence and jobs, why can't government jobs be automated? So let's go to this clip of Andrew Yang on the Bill Maher show.
That's happening to a lot of repetitive white-collar jobs. 44% of U.S. jobs are either repetitive manual or repetitive cognitive. And it turns out the repetitive cognitive might be the first to go.
Yeah, but this is also at a moment when we cannot get enough people to work in the jobs that we have. So while
Now, both of the people who spoke brought up valid points, but consider how these two things are never spoken about together. Let's say this gray block is all paid work in the economy. Whether the US economy or world economy, those distinctions are not important quite yet. Blue is the work automated by AI. So let's say that's 30%. Andrew Yang said 44%, but let's say this is 30%. And taxes paid is this red circle, another 30%. And the way these two things are spoken about, no one ever considers that there could be any overlap between these two things because they're spoken about as though they're entirely separate. Clearly, that is not true. If 44% of cognitive work is being automated by AI, like Andrew Yang said, then all the income tax that those people are paying is also disappearing in the economy and from what the tax service is collecting. But let's say there was no correlation between these two, just random. This is an artificial assumption of differentiation and non-overlap. But no correlation would mean something like this. If 30% of work is automated by AI and 30% of work goes to income tax, then a very random overlap of these two would be 30% of 30%, which is 9%. Okay, 9% of income tax dollars goes away under this random overlap. But why should it be random at all? My atom thesis, which longtime viewers of this channel have read, if not, you can find it all over this channel and elsewhere on my social media, should be this. Never 100% overlap, but it's quite easy to say that the tasks automated away by technological disruption should be where taxation revenue is drawn from. And when you combine it with what we saw in part 1, how fiscal and monetary considerations should not be kept artificially separated anymore, because it is illogical to do so given how much money is being printed and how it is being printed in the least efficient possible way. This makes very obvious sense. And as the amount of technological deflation in the economy rises, we get to a point where all of the functions of government can be automated. More and more money is being printed that can be funneled into technological deflation, but the basic services also should cost less and less. In many cases, the cost should drop by 99%. It should be 1/100th of the cost that it is, just from what we saw from earlier in this video. Combine those two, and this becomes very obvious. This actually could go down if we kept the level of services the same and intersect this even sooner, but I say that this does not even have to go down because 70% of all government spending is a transfer between individuals. So as technological deflation continues to rise and money printing continues to rise exponentially, the amount that is transferred to individuals can also similarly rise exponentially, which gets us out of all sorts of problems. Poorer people being unable to upgrade their technological products. They cannot upgrade their PCs, so they're being left behind. All other government solutions to that are extremely inefficient and messy. This would be far more robust. Decentralization of activity outside of bigger cities that is facilitated through telework and things like that. But the feedback cycle of value generation would be more automatic once you unchain the taxation from the work. And the entire Atom publication has a lot of information about that, particularly chapters 6 through 10. But from what we saw, the cost of basic governance services can be made much lower by technology. Not in a place like the United States where that's politically impossible, but in a country like Estonia, they're already doing that because they're trying to make their government more efficient, and the amount of money printing is rising exponentially. All these concepts that I related in both parts of this video, I hope how they tie together is quite clear. If not, you should read the entire Atom publication, of which the first 12 chapters are also on this channel as a narrated audiobook as well, if you don't want to read the publication in silence. Consider all these concepts because this is going to happen within the 2030s. The amount of money printing is going to be big enough that concepts of taxation and fiscal government spending cannot avoid being commingled with this. Economists of the world still think that money printing is temporary and will be reversed, and they have trouble accepting that it keeps rising exponentially and it can never be stopped, let alone reversed. That is one of the primary messages of this channel. And if you like this type of content, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for watching.